Welcome back to 1AA Parlays. I am your host, Colby Peterson. And here we have with us, of course, after a long road, many miles covered, the one, the only Montana Parlay.
Good to be back in the States.
Did you go to Canada or something?
Yeah. First time. Montana's got the longest border with Canada, but never made it up there. This was my first time. Checked out Montreal for supposed to be 2 nights. Then it turned into 3. Then it turned into 5. So finally made it back.
Yeah, it's funny because the first time I ever left the country was Canada, and I went through Montana. We were visiting Glacier, and we crossed the border in the 90s for the day. Funny. How was Montreal though? Nice.
Cool. Great food. Found a nice pub on Saturday with Wi-Fi and downloaded a VPN onto the phone and tried to keep up with as many games as possible. I could do just a early parlays preaches on whoever the hell decides to put every game at the same damn time. That's annoying.
Yeah.
But no, it was great. Met some cool folks. Got some good glasses of vino, plenty of beer, plenty of poutine. Probably put it on about 20 pounds. So, gonna have to hit the gym when I'm back.
It's the time of the year where you put on 20 pounds, though. So,
eating season.
Just wait it out. You got 30 more days. Just wait it out. Actually, it's going to be more than that because then you're going to be in Nashville and you're going to want to eat more. So really, we're talking about maybe Jan 7. Then you can start your diet.
There you go.
Well, good, man. I'm glad you made it back. Glad we can be together to talk a little bit about the lines. Last week was, I think, a little bit crazy. There were some games that raised some eyebrows, maybe some that did not. So, I don't know. Before we get in there, though, let's talk a little bit about this first round recap. Parlay, where do you want to start? Obviously, we could talk about the Yale game. I think that's the biggest surprise from last week.
Yeah, I mean it was looking how many tweets, whatever the hell you want to call them now, were making fun of the Ivies around whatever it was, 2:00 Central Time. Halftime, both of Yale and Harvard getting blown out. Harvard was favored. How the hell did that happen? In hindsight, but I just didn't know enough about Nova. I thought Harvard wasn't good, but I knew nothing about Nova. It looked awful, right? It looked awful.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, Yale came storming back. I remember commenting about an early pass interference where it was thrown up. Yale couldn't do anything. He was there. It was such a short throw. They called PI. It was probably 7. It could have been a 14-point swing. So I was thinking, man. Then there was a fumble right after that, bounced right into Youngstown State's arms. And I'm thinking, man, everything's going their way. But still, that doesn't matter. They were up, 24 with a quarter and a half left at home, and they lose. That is unacceptable, inexcusable. Other than that, the Valley kicked ass. We've got a lopsided FCS. We knew that. We'll see how bad it is this round because we've got Rhodey at UC Davis, and we got North Dakota at Tarleton. South Dakota at Mercer. But, the teams that kind of people expected to win won. Tennessee Tech did not look good.
Did not.
Maybe they were bummed about not getting a bye. So I still doesn't mean that Davis deserved the 8 seed over them. But they didn't exactly prove that they deserved it either. And then, of course, I went 3-0. At the end of the day, we won't talk about our record picking every game. And as Warren Buffett said, it's investing and gambling are like baseball, except better. You don't have to swing at every pitch. And in fact, you don't have to swing at any pitches until a really fat, juicy one comes along. So throw out Colby and I's record against the spread on the 8 games, because that doesn't mean we bet all 8 games. Absolutely not. I picked my favorite spread, and then I picked another one when the weather changed and it was clear Chase Mason was going to play. I hammered South Dakota State. The Harvard over-under, because Harvard wasn't scoring, that was a little close for comfort, but it hit. That's all that matters. And the slam dunk of the weekend was Yale and Youngstown over 59.5. Never a doubt, never a sweat. I hope you good people followed and made a little money and have a little bit, this week. We'll get to that later, but this week is definitely interesting. Tighter lines.
Yeah, a lot tighter this week. Just kind of looking through briefly. We'll talk about some of this, but we've only got one game in double figures here. So, well, that's not true. There are two games in double figures. Everything else is single digits, and so you will have to take a look and decide how you feel about those.
Only 2 over 7 points. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. I mean, most of everything, like you said, 6.5 or under. Many of them 4.5 here or less. We'll talk about all of them, but yeah, pretty tight this week. And so we'll have to make some serious decisions when Saturday rolls around and it's time to lay down some bets. But before we do that, Parlay, let's give you your time, man. Let's give Parlay a little bit of time to preach. So, floor is yours.
I don't really have anything too passionate. I'm the mediator here. All right. I got, on one side, I got the Grizz Bros. The other side, it's South Dakota State. I enjoy tailgating with both. So even though this isn't about the podcast drama, don't correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently I think the Grizz Fan Pod guy said something about hiring Robbie Howe to teach the current Grizz players to hit Chase Mason late. I don't know if that's a direct quote, but it's something to that tune. Obviously, Jax took offense to that. Hey, it's not my job to get in the middle of that. But what I do want to talk about, and it's too much has been said about it already, is the seeding. I mean, you got to beat everyone. That's kind of bullshit. South Dakota State lost 4 in a row. Fine. They had 3 road wins against playoff teams: Montana State, Youngstown State, and North Dakota. All right. That's a better resume than everyone except for the North Dakota State Bison. And yeah, they still lost 4 in a row. But you're telling me that they deserved the 14 seed? Look at who else is on the board. Look at who else is look at what the spreads are. I know it's not all about gambling, but the spreads are based off of metrics, off of stats, off of how teams match, off of plain and simple how good teams are. It's one thing if it's an 8 or a 16 team playoff, you got to seed things based on record, yada, yada. When it's 24, it's more similar to March Madness in the big basketball tournament where you look at strength of schedule. Can't even talk right now. I've been traveling too much. And conference, right? You do not put a 24-0. I don't even know how many games are in the college season. But if the Grizz went undefeated, you don't put them ahead of a North Carolina team that loses 6. You never, ever would. And I think the same is true for a Valley team and certain Big Sky teams versus these other conferences, right? Montana, they should beat South Dakota State if they're the 3 seed. But why are they playing this round? It's quarterfinal at the earliest, right? Montana should be playing Nova or Rhodey, or if they're going to play a Valley team, they should be playing North Dakota or Illinois State. It's kind of a disservice to FCS fans as a whole that things were seeded this way. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to stop now. It's going to make for a great game, lots of drama. And it's a coin flip, right? We'll dig into that deeper, but that's it. That's my rant, and I'm not the only one to do so. Let's not pretend we're seeding things and getting rid of regionalization.
All right. That was your parlay preaches for the week, and I hear what you're saying, right? That these are like you said, that's a quarterfinal matchup at least. But I also think that sometimes you have those, right, where this is happening. I mean, I would say not dissimilar from, Weber State's last appearance, getting you guys again in the second round in 2022, was it? Probably should have been a quarterfinal matchup, but that's just the way it shook out. And so, you know, so while maybe it should be a quarters, I will enjoy watching that game this weekend because I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be fun. It's probably going to be one of the best games of the week. So definitely will be watching it. But yeah, now we get to kind of see. It's almost like you said, in the NCAA tournament, you have those early round of 64 games that anything could happen, right? That's what last weekend is in the FCS playoffs. Yale can beat Youngstown State, which, man, I was joking around with some guys. I'm like, Yale's got a lot of money. I think somebody in New Haven picked up the phone and was like, hey, listen. But credit to them. They did the thing. They pulled off the upset, and so now they get the opportunity to take a trip to Bozeman in December, which is not the treat you think it is, folks. It really is not. It's tough. It's a tough place to play, especially in December. And so now things start to kind of even out a little bit, right? Now we've got this whole, the seeded teams are going to come in, and we're going to find out once again who deserved to be seeded, maybe who didn't. But matchups matter, and I don't know. Things are really going to shake themselves out this week. Once we get to the quarters, everybody's good. It is very rare for a team to get to the quarters who is fraudulent. Would you agree with that, Parlay?
99% of the time, for sure.
Right.
There could be, like, I don't know, you could probably argue some of these matchups. I don't know. I don't know about Nova and Lehigh, for one. That's going to be the first one we pick. Are those two teams top 16, top 8 teams? I don't know. But one of them is going to make the quarters. So that would be the one. Same with Rhodey and UC Davis. I don't think Davis is a top 8 team. I just don't. So whatever. Let's move on. I don't need to complain. It is what it is. You got to win the ball games now. You got to beat the team in front of you. Can't worry about where you are on the bracket. Doesn't frickin' matter. It really doesn't. So
if the goal is Nashville, then yeah, it shouldn't matter. Obviously, matchups play a big factor in football, but
sure,
if you want to play in Nashville, you got to beat who's in front of you. So let's talk a little bit about this week. So first up, like you said, we have Villanova facing Lehigh. Lehigh getting minus 4.5 in this one, over-under set at 46.5. Parlay, how do you feel about this one? Because, like you said, Nova playing a Harvard team that maybe wasn't up to the task last week, but now faces a good Lehigh team. We're going to find out.
Well, here's why, I can go 3-0 in Parlay's picks and 3-5 against the spread on picking all 8, because I'm firing in the dark here. I'm leaning Nova to cover the 4.5 just from lack of knowledge of Lehigh, but I could definitely see some kind of letdown game. But I think it's an hour bus ride. Here's another thing: Rhodey's wins the CAA, right? Correct. They have to go all the way to Davis late at night.
Yeah, it's
but
far.
Nova gets to just go an hour down the road and play Lehigh, and in a smaller spread. Again, we're back to gambling. But yeah, I'm going to take the points. I don't know the teams. I'm going to go with Nova plus 4.5.
Okay. Yeah, just taking a quick look at Lehigh's season. Great season, undefeated season for them. They're 12-0 heading into this game. Um, a good win to start the season against a fringe Richmond team, which was ranked 22, 25 at the time on August 30th. And then it's a lot of Ivy League. They played Penn, they played Yale, they played Columbia. Some adjacents, right? Like Holy Cross, Fordham. Fordham hasn't been great since a couple of years ago. And then that final game against Lafayette to close things out for them in the Patriot League. So I kind of like what you're saying here. Nova plus 4.5. I kind of like that because I'm not quite sure based on this strength of schedule from Lehigh, but that, like you said, doesn't necessarily mean anything. They could come out and be world beaters, and Nova could look bad, and that's just the way things go. So, but I think probably close. Nova looked good last week against a Harvard team that really struggled to get anything going offensively, but I'm guessing it's going to be close. I like 4.5. Nova 4.5 for me as well.
And I could really see Nova coming out in the first half hot. Lehigh's got a good defense from what I know about them. They got a good coach. So maybe Lehigh, maybe it's closer. Nova's ahead at the half and Lehigh squeaks by, but I could easily see them winning by 4 or less. So, all right, moving on.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one. South Dakota. Yotes heading down south to take on Mercer, who really, I think a lot of people look at that initial game in the Crampton Bowl that ended up getting abandoned, right? And I think most people who watched the majority of that game before the lightning kind of hit, everyone sort of agreed that Mercer was going to win that game. They had all the momentum going into that fourth quarter, and then obviously the delay, and then they just kind of threw everything in the trash. But Mercer has looked good in the SoCon champion, and so, but the Yotes are not bad either. I mean, a good Valley team. Mercer getting minus 6.5 here. Parlay, how do you see it?
Yeah, I thought the over-under was the lock of the weekend, and then I looked at the weather in Macon, Georgia. It looks like 70% chance of rain. South Dakota isn't always good on the road, but again, I'm just going to take with 6.5 points with a piping hot Valley team against a SoCon team in a very down SoCon year. Yeah. I'm going to take the points again. I'm going South Dakota plus 6.5. Doesn't mean they win on the road, but 6.5 when you've got a team as good as South Dakota. I'm gonna ride with the Valley.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of dogging them because they struggled out of the gate. A loss to Lamar and Beaumont, a win in overtime over Northern Colorado, I think, who proved to be more pesky than people anticipated, right? Northern Colorado, spoilers of Idaho's homecoming this year. Just a team that was sort of pesky, but then they went on to beat who they should beat, like Murray State, Indiana State, UNI, lose to teams like Illinois State, but a nice win against North Dakota, but in Vermilion, right? And then also a win against South Dakota State in Vermilion. And so I hear what you're saying. It's like, okay, it seems like some of their best work is done at home, and how will they fare against a tougher team on the road? Man, 6.5 is a lot. I think I'm with you, and I like USD plus 6.5 here. Don't really know what to make of Mercer. The SoCon was, like you said, maybe a little bit down this year. So, yeah, probably a close game. I like the points. I like the Yotes to cover. Doesn't necessarily, like you said, mean that they'll win, but hey, that's the way it goes. Let's get into some of these comments, man. USD has improved significantly, but they're still not close to the team they were last year. Sure, right? But what we're talking about, though, is, like you said, ramping up some nice wins throughout the season, losing in some games that they should have lost in, right? Games that we wouldn't be surprised at, like losing to North Dakota State, who I think is probably going to win the national championship, losing to Illinois State. You can decide there. But A nice win to end the season against SIU, though, even though it was 5 overtimes, which is crazy. All right. Let's do the next one, Parlay. Next up, we've got that same Illinois State team facing this year's juggernaut, North Dakota State, at home at the Fargo Dome. Parlay. This one is getting NDSU minus 23.5. How do you see it, man? And like we've already talked about, Illinois State not a bad team, but it's NDSU.
Yeah, these are the tough ones because it just depends on how North Dakota State wants to play it, right? And if ISU comes out and plays solid in the first half, North Dakota State, if they're up 17 in the second half, do they keep pushing hard? The 23.5 is not an easy spread to cover. I don't see North Dakota State losing this game. I think a lot would have to go wrong, right? As it usually does with a 23.5 point spread. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible for Illinois State. These Valley teams, I remember the stat that one of the dream teams with Trey Lance, they struggled to score against Illinois State early in the playoffs, I think in 2019, if I'm correct. So things can happen. I think that was the game that gave me hope that our Bobcats could come into Fargo and win, but that didn't come close to happening. So sometimes early in the year or in the playoffs, this buys can be good and bad, right? It's not like North Dakota State needs extra time to plan for an in-conference rival. So is there a little rust? Does Illinois State come in a little bit on a heater? Who knows? But damn it, again, this is why I'm not betting every game. I'm going to say Illinois State. I see NDSU winning by 20 to 21. So I'm going to just take the point. Gosh, that's something's got to give here. I'm taking the points in every damn game.
Well, but in this case, we're saying more than 3 scores. Could it happen? Yeah, but this is the type of spread where backdoor cover happens, right? Where you've got to win by more than 3 scores. Is NDSU capable of that? Sure, of course. Illinois State coming off of a nice road win against SLU on the road in Hammond. So I'm with you, Parlay. We just keep going the same spot, but 23.5 is a lot, man. Maybe the thing to look at here that might be competitive, over-under on this one, 53.5. How do you feel about that one?
Stay away. Stay away.
You don't like it.
You don't. That's where you could live bet it. But again, I think the spread depends on how North Dakota State wants to play it. Barring early turnovers and horrific accidents on their side, it's going to be one of those things. If they're winning 14 or 21 to 0 or 3 early and they decide they want to make a defensive statement, they're going to cover that spread easily. But if it's kind of one of those games that's just kind of a sludge back and forth to where Illinois State's moving, but they're not really scoring, and North Dakota State's up 10 to 14, they might just come out of that game happy to win by 14 to 20 points, right? At the end of the day, why would they care about covering 23.5? So it just kind of depends on the type of defensive statement they want to make after you see how the first quarter starts, the scripted plays and all of that.
Yeah, and these two teams have faced each other already this season. So October 4th, NDSU took the trip to Normal, and they ended up beating ISU by 17 in that game. Road game for them. But folks in the chat making good points here, right? We've got Brian here saying ISU got their doors blown off against SIU the last week of the regular season. That was just a couple of weeks ago. And so that one ended up being 37-7 at home against definitely a pesky SIU team, not a team to be overlooked, right? And so they've got a point, right? But at the same time, there are some wins in here that look nice. Like we talked about that South Dakota win earlier. I don't want to count the Oklahoma loss because it is what it is. But I could see them not covering. It could happen depending on how NDSU feels that day. Based on their previous meeting in the season, you probably go for the, I don't know. It's too close. 53.5 is a stay away. But I'd take ISU to cover. 23.5 is a lot. I could see a backdoor cover late in the fourth quarter. It wouldn't be crazy.
Yeah, again, just as much as depending on how NDSU wants to play it, if Illinois State goes down early, they could give up. I mean, we saw New Hampshire do that against SDSU. They weren't even trying to tackle. It was powder puff football out there in the snow. So you just don't know how the kids and the coaches want to play it out. A lot rides on the first 10 minutes of play.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Interesting game. Not necessarily for the outcome, but for the betting, like we've said. All right. Let's move on. We're getting a little bit behind here, so we'll pick it up a little bit. ACU, Abilene Christian at Stephen F. Austin. Two purple teams, two purple Texas teams. SFA getting minus 3.5 here. But ACU, the only team to beat Tarleton State. Take that for what you will, because that last game of the season, it took a miracle for them to come back and win it. Not really a miracle, just a mistake on the part of, who'd they play? I'm trying to remember. They went for 2 in overtime and they didn't get it, so they lost, right? Like, it was a gutsy call and it just didn't work out their way. Otherwise, Tarleton State loses that game in overtime, and but ACU has looked really good. Parlay, how do you see this one, man?
So SFA has won 9 in a row. They're at home. They had a week off. That line's moved up to 4 in some spots. I'm going to say Stephen F. Austin covers. I think they win by a solid 7 or more. So I'm sticking with that. Again, the 2 teams I haven't watched, 2 teams I don't know much about, but I think SFA wins at home and covers.
Yeah, it should be worth noting that second week of the season, or their second game of the season anyway, these 2 teams did face each other in Abilene. Abilene Christian got the better of the Jacks in that one, winning 28-20. So, not their first meeting, but like you said, then SFA goes on a heater, and they really took out their frustration on the next few teams, putting up more than 30 points in basically every game for the rest of the season except for the Lamar game, right? So, a good team. I could see SFA at home probably covering that 3.5, winning by more than 1 score. So, or at least by 7. So, I like you. I'm with you. I think I like SFA to cover minus 3.5, but don't be surprised. This is the kind of bet where I'm like, it's borderline stay away, I don't know. All right. Next up, we will talk about Tarleton State as they get the winner of that Tennessee Tech game. They'll face North Dakota. Parlay, how do you feel about this one, man? We've got North Dakota on the road against a Tarleton State team that did not look great in that last game of the season.
And North Dakota, they aren't as good on the road, obviously. A lot of these dome teams aren't, outside of the kids from Fargo. So I just think Tarleton has something to prove. That line's actually moved down to 6. Not that that's a huge move by any means. But I think, didn't their QB suffer a concussion in the game? And they were already on a backup. Again, I just think Tarleton, man, 6 though with UND has played some. They lost at South Dakota by 5.
Mm-hmm.
They
Lost
lost
to the Grizz
at.
early in the season
They
in Missoula.
should have beat North Dakota State. That game was nuts. They ended up losing by 5, and they should have won that game, or at least could have. They lost South Dakota State, like I think you just said, by 3 in overtime.
I mean, beat a good Youngstown State team, beat
Yeah.
that pesky Southern Illinois team.
Yeah. I mean, everything's kind of saying that Tarleton will win at home, and it'll be some crazy ass game where it's, maybe I'm talking myself out of it here. I'm going to make one of those calls where Tarleton wins but doesn't cover. So I'm taking UND on the points.
Okay. Got a few folks in here. Thanks for you guys, by the way, in the chat. It was Austin P. That last game for Tarleton State. Good, that went into overtime. Here we've got one. Tennessee Tech, no business being the 13th seed. Good defense for UND, but the UND offense is pitiful. That was kind of the thing that did them in late against the Grizz, right? Early in the season, is that they struggled to find those points in the second half to kind of keep that lead, and they ended up losing. I think I like UND to cover here. I know Tarleton's
the same on all of these.
I know, man, but it's like I'm just like looking at it like I'm putting money on this. It's like based on what I just saw from Tarleton State a couple of weeks ago against Austin P team was plucky, right? I like the Hawks to cover here. It is a road game, but I don't know, man. And like you said, sometimes these dome teams don't travel well, but game is in Texas. It probably isn't going to be insanely cold. It's not like playing a game in Bozeman or in Missoula, or in Brookings for that matter. So I like UND to cover. Over under on this one was 59.5. How are you on that one?
Again, stay away. I mean, you really have to be confident on these college over unders. They're just too volatile. You have to have a good edge some way, somehow. But yeah, I'd stay away.
Okay. A couple folks in here in the comments. Seth saying Tarleton blows them out by 20. Maybe. I mean, Tarleton has 2 FBS wins this year, right? They beat Army, and then there's somebody else. So they've shown that they are a capable team. They are here for a reason. They were top 5 for a good chunk of the season, so they're not nobody. And they could come out and just absolutely decimate them. That could happen, sure. We'll keep going here. Next one up is going to be Yale at Montana State. Parlay.
Yale, apparently that it's already up to 24.5, which crosses a key number, 24. I was really hoping it would open up less than 20 or less than 21. This again just puts it right where the North Dakota State line is to a certain degree, and I couldn't check where the North Dakota State line is right now because FanDuel doesn't show Illinois schools in college, but so I don't know if that one moved, but I think at 22.5, I'm going to take the Bobcats.
Dude, in Bozeman at Bobcat Stadium, dude.
I hate to do it, but I'm not going to try to reverse jinx anything. I just think Yale coming off the high of winning in Youngstown to travel all the way to Bozeman now to face the Bobcat defense in that environment. I mean, Bobcats could be up by 30 before anyone realizes what's going on, or they could pour it on in the second half like they've been doing to certain teams. So I'm going to reluctantly take MSU to cover.
I feel the same way because Yale had to do some second half heroics to erase that lead and just barely win by 1 against a good Youngstown State team, right? They were good, and Yale should get some credit for that because a lot of people last week, like you said, the chatter online was that the Ivies didn't belong, and Yale sort of saved their, at least some of their dignity, right? And I think that they'll continue to get better as they continue to play. But man, Montana State in Bozeman, especially in the second round, man, like it's tough. Could it be 22.5? Yeah. I mean, Youngstown State almost had that at the half. What was it, 33-7 at the half?
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah, Bozeman Cats will score on Yale just as easily as Youngstown did. And you can't even begin to compare the Cat defense, especially in Bozeman, versus the Penguins defense. You just can't. You know, bad defenses make average teams look good.
Yeah.
And bad teams look decent. So it's going to be a new ball game for Yale.
Yeah, so we got to think that the Cat defense keeps them down and that they just can't seem to get anything going offensively, and then Bobcats will do what they do offensively like they've done all season. Cats probably cover here. Next one up, one we talked about at the top, South Dakota State with their quarterback back in the saddle, taking the trip to Missoula to face the Grizz. Grizz getting minus 2.5 here. Man, Parlay, putting your Grizz hatred aside, putting your betting cap on. How you feel here?
So yeah, I've joked with some other Cat fans. It's almost mixed feelings. Like we kind of want the Cat Grizz rematch in the semifinals, but the Schadenfreude of watching them lose the first game in the playoffs, it would be bad to have the little chuckle, right? But be careful what you wish for, because if Jackrabbits get hot, they already won in Bozeman once. And I'll shut up about the future now, because this is the game that matters right now. Parlays preaches aside and all the other chatter online. This is the game that matters. It's moved to 1.5. It's going to be a pick'em, or South Dakota State's going to be favored come Saturday. So here's the deal, though. South Dakota State played a team that at home that wasn't tackling. That field is so hard to play on in those conditions, and I know they both have to play on it, but it just matches up with the Jack's strength so much better than New Hampshire's. So, I think between getting Mason back and the score of that game, there could be some overreaction here. And Missoula's still one of, if not the hardest place to play at.
And it's the playoffs, man. I mean, we've seen in recent years, how many Grizz runs where just the magic of Missoula just keeps giving, and they find a way to win.
And they've got 3 playmakers on offense that can keep them in this game.
Yeah.
Because they will get roughed up in the trenches. There's no doubt about it. But South Dakota State, they are not deep. They're not like the Bobcats in that third or fourth quarter that can just keep bringing in fresh blood. They are not as deep on the line. So, if the Grizz can wear them out a little bit and keep it close, I think the Grizz win this. So I'm taking the Grizz to cover. This is, I don't mess around with my picks and my bets. I'm not trying to reverse jinx this at all. I'm not trying to throw bad voodoo at either team. This is a hell of a ball game. These are 2 top 6 teams in the FCS. Let's face it, they're 2 top 6 teams in the FCS, and they're playing in the first round. It's going to be great.
Second round, technically, right?
Yes, second round. Sorry, but it's pre-quarterfinals, 2 top 6 teams. Going to be damn near a pick 'em in the Mecca.
I didn't think you would acknowledge that. I don't acknowledge it. Sorry, guys, I don't.
The tone of my voice, right?
Okay. But sarcasm.
Yeah, Grizz win. it's going to be a great game.
Could
I'm not going to be
definitely happen.
surprised. It's a pick 'em, so it's not like I'm going to live and die by my pick. But yeah, Grizz win at home. Jacks have come a long way since their 4-game slide, but they're still not as deep as they need to be to win a game in Missoula in the playoffs.
Yeah, a couple comments here. Jack's defense is good, but they give up explosive plays. Ayat will eat you alive with those explosive plays if you let him. And like you said, Michael Wortham, Eli Gilman. This is a potent offense when it wants to be. Montana has playmakers. I think that maybe folks have already forgotten that a couple of weeks ago that, I mean, that brawl, it was close. It wasn't a blowout. That was a close game. And so Grizzlies defense gives up a ton of yards. Jack's offense could put up a lot of points. Could be. So it's a pick 'em like Parlay's been saying the whole time. Another question here for you, Parlay. SDSU beat MSU and Bozeman in earlier in the season. Is the atmosphere that different from Wash Grizz? What do you say?
It's not as loud. They get both end zones are pretty much closed off. They've got the mountain there. It's louder there. It just is. Like
Yeah.
I think our tailgating's better. I think, they're both great FCS atmospheres, no doubt about it. They're both loud as hell, but it's louder at Wagriz. And, we had someone else brought up in the comments, the Bobcats had brand new QB, brand new OC, coming off a game in Eugene against a top FBS team.
Like, man. Oregon's
I
so
just
wasn't
wasn't impressed
so
by.
fraudulent.
Yeah, they've fallen off a bit in the second half of the season. But
whatever.
Honestly, I was not too impressed with either team overall in that game. It was a hell of a game, double overtime, but that second half, like neither offense looked that good. It wasn't like the defenses were dominating. I just thought it was just a weird game. And yeah, Jacks showed that they could win on the road, and they pulled it out in double overtime. They came up with 2 great plays in double overtime that, I don't like seeing the Bobcat. But again, this is about the Grizz, and they're going to play a different game than the Bobcats did in September, and it's louder at Wagriz.
There you go. So I don't blame you for taking Grizz to cover. I think I'm gonna take SDSU to cover here. Like if it is a Grizz win, a close one,
A 1 or 2 pointer, huh?
Hey man, it could happen because it's a good team. But like you said, there is magic in Missoula during the playoffs, and it's a hard place to win. All right, last one. Last one, here we go. Rhodey all the way across the country to face Davis in Davis. Davis getting minus 5.5 here. Parlay. Does Davis deserve to get minus 5.5 here?
I think it's too low. I mean, I think, yeah, you said it. Coming all the way across the country after a bye. I really kind of like Davis in this spot. Again, I don't know anything about Rhodey. I don't know if the CAA is fraudulent or not because Nova blew out Harvard. I don't know what that means. Okay.
Yeah.
So in New Hampshire looked terrible. But again, that you can't really take much from that game either because, again, they kind of gave up in 2 minutes into the game. So this will be a good measuring stick for the CAA and for Davis. I think I read it's their first nationally televised game on their home field. But Rhodey's playing the kickoff is at 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Oof. That's
pretty brutal. It's just it's not when they're used to playing at what noon or 11 a.m. their time, and they're kicking off at 10. That's rough. I never remember William and Mary coming into MSU. They were hot. They came in, played at night, and what was it, 55-7?
Yep,
so
it wasn't close.
And Davis, here's the thing. They've got the firepower, that QB, but he's he's a roller coaster, man. He can, Pinnock is tons of talent, but he could, if Rhodey can get a couple picks, obviously these games always come down to turnovers and execution, but I got to give the edge to Davis for everything I just said.
Yeah, because Pinnock he's a very accurate passer. That seems to be what Davis produces these days, because Hastings was kind of the same way. He would dink and dunk you to death. Lots of passes into the flat that get 6-7 yards, and it's just death by 1,000 cuts, right? Davis is without a couple of key weapons on both offense and defense. So, but I think that all of the environmental things, like you said, matter here. A flight across the country, a late game. Rhode Island, they had some wins, but they also had some losses, like losing to Brown. I mean, it was a close game, but losing to Brown in early October. This New Hampshire team that, like you said, they faced them the following week, beat them 38-27, not a resounding win. New Hampshire, obviously a playoff team in their own right, but after that, the schedule gets pretty soft. Central Connecticut ended up, making a bit of a run there in the second half, losing the game 27-19, because I think early you and I were talking via text, and we were like, I don't know if Central Connecticut is going to cover, man, if they're going to be able to make it back. But Davis at home, there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot to like. That stadium is probably going to be full, and so I don't blame you. I kind of like Davis to cover as well.
Yeah, the one thing I did see is Davis struggles against good passing teams, and Rhodey's got some good passing statistics. Again, I don't know, but is that because of who they've played? That's the trouble with these conferences going up against each other. But that could be an issue with Davis. If Rhodey can come out and hit their routes, and settled in at 10 p.m. on the West Coast. Davis lost it Idaho, to your favorite team, Idaho State, at home. So
it's true.
And they can pass the ball. So
that's all they did. That's not fair. Dason Brooks was a really great running back for the Stripes. As annoying as I find them, they did have weapons, but overwhelmingly, yeah, Cook wanted to throw the ball, right? Like, that's what he did. So, all right, Parlay. Wrapping this one up, man. You want to grab any fan questions? We've gone on now for 49 minutes, waxing poetic here.
Yeah.
Maybe just give us your final thoughts on the weekend. Maybe just go straight to Parlay's picks. Give us your 3, and we'll just kind of see how it lands.
If there was one over to max bet, it was when I texted Colby, hey, we need to cut this one short because it's starting late. And I said 40 minutes or less. You should have max bet that over. So speaking of point totals, again, I want to go back to my little Warren Buffett quote, because it's a real thing he said about picking stocks is you don't have to invest just to invest, right? You can sit back, wait for the perfect moment. Sports betting is the same, right? You don't have to bet every week. You don't have to bet every game. It wouldn't be no fun if I said I'm not betting any game this week, right? So I'm going to have to do something. The point totals, I'm not going to pick any point totals this week, even though I was 2-0 on them last week. But I'm going to tell you this. Watch the weather. Rain can make things very volatile, generally brings down point scoring by 4 to 6 points. That's what AI says. But it can cause fumbles. So, fumbles can lead to more point scoring, depending on where they're at on the field, right? And it can help the running game. So I haven't dug into the defense and the run game, blah, blah, blah. But if it's dry in Macon, Georgia, hammer that over. Both South Dakota and Mercer can score. 55.5 is nothing for those offenses if we see a sunny day or a partly cloudy day, or if the rain misses Macon, right? Keep an eye on that. The other one, South Dakota State and Montana. If it looks like a rain-snow mix, could be slick as hell. Who knows what can happen? But in cold and in snow on this field turf, time and time again. It's not the old grass. It's not the crappy, muddy, hard rock crap that makes offenses grind to a halt. Cold makes for higher point scoring, and so does snow. I know it seems weird, but that's just how it works. So if we see snow or just cold without the rain, I like the over in the Grizz Jacks game as well.
That's 55.5 the over-under in that one.
Do not bet it right now. Do not bet. Do yourself a favor and wait those out. So, my 2 picks. I'm going with South Dakota 6.5 over Mercer. I just like the way they've been playing lately. And again, I'm going off, Mercer could be great. They might win by 10 plus, make me look like an idiot.
That's the SoCon champ. They're not nobody.
Yeah. But I just like South Dakota State's battle tested. They've played more playoff teams. They got Bauman. So I'm going to go with South Dakota in that game. And finally, they could burn me just like they did against the Stripes when I was pretty confident they'd win at home. But Davis getting only 5.5. That is one of the biggest discrepancies from Massey, from other, advanced metrics, so to speak. It also kind of interesting considering they had the bye, considering it's 10 p.m. on the West Coast against an East Coast team. I'm taking Davis minus 5.5. So just 2 picks this week. I don't love the South Dakota one. I might not even put a full unit on that. But Davis,
it came with the caveat, right?
Yeah. Davis, I might put more than a unit on. And now I need to shut the hell up because we're about 20 minutes past what I'd planned on.
All right. So there you have it, folks. Those Parlay's picks for the week. Parlay, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Hey, ESPN, can you spread the damn games out a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch too many games last weekend because I was busy in that one window when everything happened. I did watch the first half of Harvard Villanova, and then I turned it off because I'm like, this ain't happening, man. Harvard cannot do anything offensively. So a little bit more spread out this week, but some good games. I hope everybody has a good time. Just enjoy. If you're a person like me whose school is not in the playoffs, this is a great year because you just get to watch and enjoy good quality playoff football without the anxiety. Unless you put a lot of money down, then a little anxiety. So, Parlay, appreciate you, man. Hopefully you get rested up, and we'll look forward to chatting with you about the quarterfinals next week. So, with that said,
thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all the participation, all the views.
You guys are the best
doing this. It's a lot of fun doing this.
It is. So we'll see you folks next week. Appreciate you, and best of luck in your parlays.